He won an animation Oscar for Creature Comforts, man-on-the-street interviews with the animals in a zoo. He's the creative talent behind Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run. Nick Park, a key member of England's Aardman Animation Studios, is back with delightful new animated feature, Early Man. Cavemen and football? Why didn't anyone think of that sooner?
Where have you been, the Stone Age?
Welcome, animator extraordinaire, Nick Park.
Thank you.
Now, smiling people the world over are familiar with your creations, Wallace and Gromit. But we're here today because in the year 2018 AD, there is a new film, Early Man, Crow Man in French. Without giving all the good bits away, what's it about?
Well, it's about a bunch of cave people. And Doug, our main character, and his pet Hognob, a wild boar, sort of sidekick of his. It's really about Doug, and he's just this wide-eyed, optimistic, kind of born optimist, very naive, but born optimist, who just believes his tribe could do better and are better somehow in themselves. He's held back, really, by his chief, who's keeps them in a more low achievement state. I know they are a bunch of idiotic cavemen.
You're pretty brave, caveman. And stupid.
What strange magic is this?
Actually, more stupid than brave, really.
Thanks.
Now, you appear to be a full-grown man, but this is an animated film. How hard do you laugh when people say, oh, animation, that's just for kids?
Yeah, I had that from school. I remember that. I remember even at school, I loved to draw cartoons since I was very young, and I've always loved animation. So I remember one art teacher saying, that's not proper art. And I guess part of me has always been defiant against that. And in fact, I didn't think it was proper art myself, to be honest, for many years. I used to do animation as a kid, like as a hobby when I was at school. And I guess it's, my parents said, well, they saw that I was doing animation and they loved it, and they said, why don't you think of it as a career? And so I was grateful. They pushed me forward and said, go to art school, maybe learn how to do all the other aspects and the lighting and the camera work, and think of it as a real career.
Things could have turned out very differently if you had different parents.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, the central female character is absolutely instrumental in bringing progress to probably the then-known world. Oh. Did you ever think about casting a clay man in that role?
Well, no, it seemed to work well for our story, really. We needed an injection of someone new, and thought it would be more interesting if it's a Bronze Age fan girl rather than a fan boy, someone who has the knowledge all about football. And it seemed a bit different as like a sort of geeky football supporter that it should be a girl, and also it seemed more representative because. Like in America, women's football has always been very big, and it's really growing in the UK and the rest of the world now. So it seemed more true to have a girl as the good one.
Now, the film contains messages about teamwork, combating sexism, and protecting the environment. It also has a lot of rabbits. Is that stuff important, or are you just trying to make people laugh?
I think primarily we're trying to make people laugh. Yeah. But I think you have to have some comment and stuff that means something to people as well. It's always a balance at Aardman. I think I don't think we like to be too sentimental, and you know what I mean. But at the same time, I think there's something about this story which I haven't quite been in before, which is sweeter and has a nicer message for me. I think it feels good to you just go by what feels good, really, and what suits the story. Yeah.
Hello. How do you use this message bird thing?
It's the Queen.
Just speak into its ear, Mom. It will mimic everything it hears. I don't even know if I'm holding it. Testing. Testing. North?
Nowadays, posters for animated films tend to show the names of recognizable, rather famous, accomplished actors doing the voices. Your Oscar-winning short film Creature Comforts, of course, didn't have any known voices.
No.
How important is it to have big-name people when you're setting out to make a feature film in animation?
Well, I think it's important to have great voices, but those can be very unknown, you know, as you suggest. And Creature Comforts was just people almost off the street, really, and just interviewing them. And because everyone has it celebrates the diversity of, you know, different real characters. And so casting has always been very important. Of course, I think it makes the job easier for the studio, you know, for promoting the film if there's recognisable talent in there. But I think first and foremost, I'm very lucky to have got Tom Hiddleston, you know, Eddie Redmayne, you know, Maisie Williams, Timothy Spall, and all the others, my favourite comics and comedians and actors. I feel so privileged to have worked with them. But it's really, they're very handpicked for the quality they bring, really, first and foremost. Because I'm always looking for something a bit different, a bit extraordinary, and because it's animation, you know, that they bring something of some kind of extra sort of spirit and quality to the film.
Eddie Redmayne voices Doug in English, and French actor Pierre Ninet, a former member of the Comédie Française, does Doug's voice in French.
Long live the age of bronze. L'univers des studios Aardman, c'est les premiers.
Aardman Studios were the very first ones to democratize the idea that Play-Doh can make absolutely marvelous, inventive, crazy and poetic animation. And they always have within their creation a huge amount of invention. For me, Wallace and Gromit was exactly that, almost minimalist comedy like Jacques Tati, characters that have a Buster Keaton side, and in terms of creativity it's just incomparable. With all the machines, etc. When you're a kid, it's extraordinary. And it also has a very strong visual identity.
Gromit, old pal, I'll need assistance.
Now, because we're talking about animation and you've been doing it for a while, when you started out, it was image by image with film loaded in a camera, which had to be developed. You didn't know what you had, but cinema is increasingly digital. Can you talk about how your profession has changed since you started?
Yes, I mean, at Aardman, we've always been open to the new technology, even though we have always hung on to the, I guess, you know, our hallmark is the stop frame animation. That's always important to us. But we've, you know, like now, this film is, you know, sort of primarily stop frame. All the principal animation is traditional stop frame animation, but it's all shot on digital cameras, which offers more sort of flexibility as well, and it's a great safety net, you know, for example, if you're in the middle of a shot that's taking you 3 days to shoot, and suddenly a branch falls off on a tree, the shot isn't ruined. You know, you can sort of play around afterwards and paste it back in, and we, to make the animation faster, for example, rather than, you know, obviously because there's a lot of jumping around in the film, and whereas normally if a character jumps in the air, we'd have had to hang them on fishing line or wires, and then really work a lot to position the character to hide the wire. And nowadays we just have like a metal rig, and the animator can work a lot faster, and then we just paint the rig out afterwards. We don't worry about hiding it at the time. Because it's in this new expanded world of the prehistoric, and there's lots of CGI work as well, in the backgrounds mainly, like lava and fire and, you know, sun, you know, clouds and smoke and all sorts, you know.
Speaking of that, especially at the beginning, there's this marvelous pre-credit sequence, which Peter Bradshaw in The Guardian said Stanley Kubrick, no less, would have enjoyed. He also said sometimes watching your film, it's as if it was a script written by Paul Laverty for Ken Loach. So do you hear that and think, Kubrick, Ken Loach? I mean, no, really. I mean, that's much too much. Or do you think, well, damn straight, it's about time someone noticed what we're doing here?
Well, I'd like to claim credit for that. No, but there is, I do have a great love of the history of filmmaking, and I refer to in the football game to Gladiator, Ridley Scott. In thinking I've got to make this really cinematic and exciting, so I, looked at Gladiator and with the crowd scenes and everything, and because football often isn't very cinematic, and so I needed to do that, and all different films, when Doug and Hognob jump out of a window with Gunnar, and I was thinking of Die Hard, when they grab the toilet paper and jump out of the window and light the fire hose sort of thing. So there may be subtle references, but that's what's always been fun for me, that it's not just kids animation, it's got all these references to film culture.
Thank you so much, Nick Park.
Oh, thank you very much.
Now take him away and kill him. Slowly. Ah! Idiots!